I miss those days when I could experience the enchantment of Christmas through a child's perspective. I was struck by that, Peter, tonight because before worship started, I was talking to Peter's daughter, Claire, and she said, "Do you know what tonight is?" And I said, "Christmas Eve, and tomorrow's Christmas Day." And she said, "That's my favorite day of the year." I remember as a child that sense of something wondrous happening at Christmas. I remember as a child the lights and the songs, the carols, the food, the presents that appear as if by magic on Christmas morning. I miss that wonder. Growing up has its perks, don't get me wrong. I can drive. I get a paycheck. I can decide when I'm through with my vegetables or not. It has its perks. But it also, I'm afraid, sometimes growing up you lose a sense of that enchantment. The children greet the world and engage the world. I used to joke when my kids were 4, 5, 6 years old, you can't go anywhere fast with a toddler. You know why? Because as you're walking down the street, they're enraptured, enchanted by the shape of a leaf they find, the shape of a tree. And I don't know what happened, but somehow that enchantment, that sense of the mystery of Christmas, gets misplaced as we grow up. Amidst the busyness and business of making a life, of living life, gets lost somehow in that journey to adulthood. That enchantment about the world, about Christmas, gets misplaced or mislaid because the mundane becomes more real than the magic. Maybe that's just what it means to grow up. You see, the older I got, I forgot something important. How to be filled with wonder. How to be enchanted by it all. And it's not simply something about growing up and becoming an adult. In fact, we live in a world that is very disenchanted, if you think about it. A world that has lost, in many ways, a sense of wonder. Our worldview is defined in very rational, materialistic ways, more concerned with questions of efficiency and calculability and predictability and control. What some sociologists call, in describing our society, it's the McDonaldization of society. A worldview that turns humans into consumers, that turns nature into something to be consumed. This is kind of depressing, but one philosopher put it this way. He says, for humanity these days, here in the 21st century, for humanity these days, there is no human project to be accomplished, nothing to be reached for anymore. There's no magic. All we're left with, history has ended. All we're left with is shopping at Walmart. That's depressing. The passage we read this evening is a familiar one. It's a beautiful hymn. It's a hymn sung, like I said, thousands of years ago by human beings who express, and what it does for me is expresses wonder at the cosmos. It expresses somehow something about the nature of the cosmos around us. Something magical. In the beginning was the Word, And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Nothing came into being without the Word. Now, the Greek for word is it's a very hard word to interpret. It's logos. So it would seem to imply, in many ways, underneath what it's evoking is a sense of a kind of structure that exists in the cosmos, a sense of something that permeates everything around us. It is not a denial of logic. In fact, the very word logos is the basis for logic. But it expresses something more profound and deeper. Something that is supposed to evoke from us awe. Now, it's a common thing in our culture today to think science and religion, the rational and the irrational, are opposites. And in some ways, some might say those who are scientists lose a sense of awe, but I would argue the opposite is true. And I'll embarrass my daughter. She's a scientist. And to hear her talk, she's in neuroscience. Don't ask me, my God, to explain neurons or anything like that. But the sense of wonder and awe about what she studies. And the reality is that in science and religion share at their base this sense of wonder about the world. They're not opposites. They have different covenants about truth, different ways of interpreting that, but ultimately they come from a sense of wonder. Socrates, thousands of years ago, said, "Wisdom begins with wonder." Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon, talks about how mystery creates wonder, and wonder is the basis of humanity's desire to understand. And Stephen Hawking died, I believe, just this past year. Look up at the stars, not down at your feet. Try to make sense of what you see and wonder. Wonder about what makes the universe exist. Be wondrous. Now, often we think faith is learning how to live within certain lines. The truth is, faith is not about living within certain lines. Faith is about the joy of coloring. One of my favorite books, one of the most spiritual and meaningful theological books I ever read, was by a scientist named Brian Swim, who identifies as an atheist. And in that book, it's called "The Universe is a Green Dragon." And Brian Swim is a cosmologist. He's a scientist who studies the origins of the cosmos and reflects on that. And one of the things he asserts in his book, he says, human beings are the result of evolution, and we are the evolution of the universe, that aspect of the universe that can marvel at the universe, who can study it, who can find joy in it. We are that part of the universe that can feel wonder. So when we celebrate this evening a birth, a mysterious birth, the possibility of love made manifest, when we hear the stories and sing the songs, it may feel sometimes But ultimately, my hope for us this Christmas is that we can pause and feel the wonder. To God be the glory this day and forevermore. Amen.